Hi, this is Sweet Nothings Crochet again, and here we have one more free video. This is for a beautiful diamond pattern that I have used in my diamond tote bag, and as you can see the diamonds there. So it's made up of it's just a two-line pattern. The first row makes the first set of V and the second row completes it. Now the stitches I have called a V1 stitch and a V2 stitch. So the V1 stitch is a set of 3 stitches. It's a DC, a chain 3 and a DC all worked in the same stitch. And the V2 is a DC2 together that's worked over the 2 legs of the first set of V stitch. So pretty simple stitch. The only difference is that when I've used it in my diamond tote, I've worked it in a round. So the first and the last stitch, they become the last V stitch. The first V stitch or the last V stitch, you join it together. As I'm showing it to you in a swatch, I'm doing it in a row for ease, and therefore I'm going to be starting with the DC. Don't get confused because it's this part of the stitch that's important, not the front and the last rows. So let's see how we do this. Right, so we have to start in multiples of 3. As I'm working in a row, I work with multiples of 3 plus 1. So if you ever want to make this pattern again for a scarf or some other pattern that does not require to be worked in rounds, then it is in multiples of 3 plus 1. I've just started with 22 stitches for my foundation single crochet. To see how to work the foundation stitches, the foundation single or the foundation half double crochet, please check my earlier videos. I also start with the chain 1 for all of my stitches. So in my first stitch, just because I am working in a row, I start with a double crochet. And I'm struggling just with the double crochet. How am I going to show you the stitch? Right. So the first V stitch that we work is a double crochet, chain 3, slip stitch in the base of the same stitch, and double crochet in the same stitch. So just pull that a little longer and work a double crochet in the same stitch, and that's your first V stitch. Skip the next 2 stitches and work the next V stitch, V1 stitch, that is a double crochet, chain 3, slip stitch in the base of the same stitch, and a double crochet in the same stitch. So you've just kept that chain a little longer, and then work your double crochet. That's your next V stitch. You do this all the way down. So there, skip the next 2 stitches and you'll work your V stitch there, double crochet, chain 3, slip stitch in the same stitch, double crochet in the same stitch. Skip the next 2, double crochet, chain 3, slip stitch in the base of the same stitch, double crochet all the way till the end, 2, and then that stitch, see it's 3 things that we're doing all in the same stitch. Skip the next 2 stitches, double crochet, chain 3, slip stitch in the base of the same stitch, keep that a little long, double crochet, skip the next 2 stitches, double crochet, chain 3, a slip stitch in the base of the same stitch, sorry about that, and double crochet in the same stitch. Now if you're working in a round, you'll be working a double crochet, you'll be doing a V stitch 1 in that stitch as well. As I'm working in a row, I end it with a double crochet. So if you're going to be using this pattern to make a scarf, for example, then you start with a double crochet there and you end with a double crochet there. I started with a V1 stitch in that end, but if you do that, then your row goes a little wonky. So if you're making for a scarf, remember you start with a double crochet. All right. Now your pattern for the tote will say a slip stitch in that stitch, but again, as I'm working in a row, I will start with the double crochet. Just look at the pattern for the rest of the look at the stitch for the rest of the pattern and don't worry about this first start stitch. So it says your pattern will say slip stitch and then word 3 chain, and then you work a V stitch over the first V1 stitch and the second V1 stitch. So that's the V, that's the top of the stitch. You go into the space there. That's a DC2 together, and that's your first diamond. All right. Chain 3. You go back to the first diamond there, the first V stitch there, and you do the first leg of your DC2 together. You go to the next V stitch and you work the second leg of your DC2 together, and your second diamond forms. Chain 3, V stitch over the earlier stitch there and the next stitch there. Chain 3, V stitch over this stitch and the next stitch. So there, and the top of the V stitch there. You do this all the way around for the diamond tote, or all the way till the end of the row if you're working a scarf. If you just remember that you're working in diamonds, it's easier to find where to go. It's the top of the V stitch. And all the way till the end. Chain 3, and you work a V stitch. If you're working a scarf, you'll be working a V stitch over the second last V and then a DC at the end. And that's how that'll look. You continue then working the V1 stitch over these 2 points, and then you'll work a V2 stitch over the next 2 points, and this is how you'll end up with a pattern that looks as beautiful as this. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration today, this tutorial today, and I hope you'll make the diamond tote bag or make a scarf. Do remember to tag me when you do that, and let's all enjoy your creation together. Wonderful. Have a great day. Bye-bye.